saying that it's recording.
Couple more minutes.
We'll just give folks a few more moments before we get started. It's nice to see a good group of people attending this evening. Okay, so it is 7, and I like to be a stickler for getting started in good time. So we'll kick this thing off. The recording will be available for anyone that does miss any portion. Questions will certainly be welcome at the end of today's presentation, and then moving forward as we get closer to the actual construction date. But if we haven't met yet, I'm Zed Pickering, Ward 3 Councillor. And so I'm happy to host this evening. We're also joined by Ross Weldon. He will be the consultant on the project, going over a few different slides, and will be able to help answer any questions that you do have. We also have in attendance a few different members of council with our township here this evening. We've got the regional councillor, Bruce Garrett, with us. We've got Deputy Mayor Willie Pop here, Councillor Snooks as well. It's good to see you. And also with the township, Christy Honey and Nadine Messina. I think that I pretty well have everyone covered there. So tonight's discussion is to take a look at the Planks Lane reconstruction, which is happening between Main Street and Marietta. A lot of you here in attendance will be familiar with the project. This is a continuation down that lane, but maybe Ross, over to you.
Yeah, I'll just get my slides to share here. Hopefully everybody can see that. So welcome to our last and final block of Planks Lane reconstructions. Most of you have been aware of it for the last few years going on. We're down to the last piece. If I can get the slide to advance, it should be fine. All right, so what we're planning to do is carry on from what we've done. Same road cross section that was built of the other 3 blocks. We presented it back in 2019. We looked at all the written and email comments from the public, considered them all, came up with the best fit for the right of way, being it's very narrow. So what the overwhelming choice was what we've moved ahead with and built the first 3 blocks. So now we're carrying on. Urban cross section, curb and gutter, like you see on the others, sidewalk on the north side, multi-use path on the south side. Same thing, storm sewer. We're going to put some low impact development features in the ground to collect stormwater runoff and get it into the ground rather than letting it run off on the surface. That helps to just recharge the groundwater. there's a picture of our typical section. A little wider on the north side than the south side on the crossfall, but when you're driving it, you probably don't notice that crown shift slightly. But what we're going to do. So the region on this block, we're only replacing the sanitary sewer and the service connections. So the water main was done a few years ago. It's plastic PVC pipe. It's all good, so we don't have to worry about that. But the sanitary, we're replacing it, and again, they'll do your services right up to property line. And the sewer is going to be much deeper than what's out there today, so that will help with any drainage issues that may not be happening with the sewer. So our schedule, we're a little bit behind on where we thought we'd be right now, but the tender, it's going to go to tender probably this month with an award sometime in April. So the idea is to have our pre-construction meeting early May. They can get started mid-May and then get, really rolling by the end of May this year. Hopefully be wrapped up by September. I know the last few blocks seem to go on very late in the year, October, November, and we're going to try to not have that happen. Now, this is the shortest of the the 4 blocks. So if we get started May, June, we should be well done by September and get everything cleaned up before winter. So communication during construction, as the other past years, we'll have a full-time inspector on site, and he or she will be your first point of contact. So once we get close to the construction, we know who the contractor is going to be, and the person from our staff will be picked. There'll be a letter that'll go around with all the contact information. So there'll be a phone number for the inspector and the contractor, and that person will be your first contact. Any issues, you call them. So the township and the contractor will endeavor to keep everybody posted during construction with hand delivered notices and try to keep you abreast of what's happening, so you're not surprised by things. Phone number for day-to-day questions, concerns, and then there'll be another one for after our emergencies. So if something's happening in the middle of the night, there's a number to call, be one of our staff or the contractor, and we'll look after the problems. The schools will be made aware of the upcoming work. It's a typical thing. We notify them all so they know to adjust bus schedules and whatnot. And then the township website will have all the project and contact information for inquiries and updates as we go forward. So construction impact, you're probably all well aware of this disruptions. It's going to be inconvenience. We're not going to hide that. It's going to be noisy, dusty, dirt. There's going to be some vibration. There'll be times when you can't get in your driveway or can't get down the street. We're going to do everything we can to minimize these impacts, but there're going to be some. There's no hiding that fact. So we're hoping that everybody has some patience during the construction. We're trying to get done in 4 months or less, so to keep the disruptions to the minimum. Again, we'll try to notify people well in advance if you can't get in your driveway or anything like that. The grading and tree protection, we're not planning to take down any trees. Same as the other blocks, we're matching at property line or just behind property line. So any trees will be protected with fencing during construction, and we're not planning to touch anything on the road or on private property. So the next thing, the pre-construction inspection and vibration monitoring. In the past projects, the contractor will have hired a specialist that does inspections. They will notify or try and get in touch with everybody within the contract area and around sort of side streets. And the idea of this is they come in and assess the current condition of your residence, inside and outside. Now, you don't have to let them in your house. That's totally up to you. We strongly recommend that you do. It protects everybody. It protects you as a homeowner. If something happens, protects the contractor, protects the township. Then if there's a clear problem, then it's easy to deal with. If you don't have an inspection done, they will do the outside from the street. Obviously, they can see, but if you don't let them in your house, if there's an issue, it's pretty tough to prove what happened when they have no before and after pictures. So they take pictures, they measure things. If there's cracks, they'll note anything. That way, it's clear when we start, and then if something happens, we can see if there's who caused it or what, if the construction caused it, and deal with it then. So in the contract, we have an item for vibration monitoring. So once they start to excavate and then backfilling the holes, they have to compact the backfill in the trenches and the road base with vibratory equipment. There'll be sensors installed on the street, and that will monitor levels. There's acceptable levels that are set by the provincial regulations, and they monitor those. So things start to get a little high, okay, stop, let's try something different as for compaction to minimize those vibrations. And then if we have to, change something else, slow down the work to try to minimize that. And then they advise that if there's valuable or sentimental things, take them off the walls or out of your china cabinet, just in case. If people have very sensitive things, you might want to just pack them away just for when they're doing that kind of work. The traffic construction, this block of planks will be closed to through traffic during construction. So you'll be able to get in and out of your driveways most of the time, and emergency vehicles will be allowed all the time. Construction vehicle access, we had been designating that all to come from Nalkide for the other 3 blocks. It may or may not still happen that way. It might be just easier to come in off Main Street, but we'll deal with that once we get into the construction activities and see where things are coming from. They'll make every effort to maintain the pedestrian access through the site, so they'll keep one of the sidewalks open as long as they can. But there will probably be a time where they'll have to close them, and then in the past we put signs up and barricades to notify people that it's closed. Now the school kids still probably will go through, but the contractor keeps an eye on people that are in the area, just so that if they're driving equipment or whatnot, to keep everybody safe. And then we'll provide notice if you need to move your vehicle or if your driveway is going to be inaccessible for any length of time. The parking will be allowed on the side streets around the corner or on the other section of planks, and by law enforcement will be notified, so they won't get tickets for parking in there during the construction period. Garbage collection, all of it will be maintained. Fridays is your garbage day up there, so it'll all be picked up. For the first bid, just put it out at the end of your driveway as normal. Once construction gets going, the contractor will assist on taking the garbage and the recycles to the end of the block to a point where they can be picked up easily. And then they'll bring the bins back. So it's one of those, make sure your house numbers are on your garbage and blue bins and green bins, so that they can make sure you get back your proper bins. So this is a picture just of the first of the block with just what's being removed. A couple of little details of the infiltration trenches. So the limits are the property lines. There's some of the driveway grading may go back farther than the property line, but some of that will be field fit, and there'll be discussions with homeowners as far as how far you want to go. If you want to be less and have it a little steeper, then that could be all worked out while we're working on things. And this is the finished product. Same thing, that the sidewalk on the north side, multi-use path on the south side to carry on with the other blocks. And as you can see, there's the sanitary sewer down deep. Storm sewer will be shallow, but picking up all the road drainage. And that's pretty much it. So if we have any questions or discussion.
Yeah, and perhaps if you do have a question, if you're able, there's the little hand raising icon at the top, and that will let us know that you have a question. Okay, so it looks like we've got Patty with a question. Do you want to kick it off, Patty?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I have a couple of questions. Can we talk a little bit more about so I'm on the south side. Can we talk a little bit more about the asphalt pathway and what size that is?
Yeah, it's 2.5 meters, and it'll be right adjacent to the curb. So it's the same as what's on the other 3 blocks.
And so right now there is no curb on this side. It's just the driveway onto the road.
Yep.
So how will that be distinguished?
Well, the curb is, I should show the cross section back on here.
And is there a reason why it's an asphalt pathway and not an actual sidewalk?
And that's typically what's been done to differentiate the two. Sidewalks are usually always concrete, and then the multi-use paths are tend to be more asphalt, and that's so that bicycles can drive on them, and you don't get the contraction joints, bang, bang, bang,
Yeah.
or freeze-thaw, and you get some humps and bumps. It makes it smoother for strollers and bicycles.
So then so the end of our lawn where it will meet the asphalt path, is there something that's going to like be a divider, or is it just going to go from grass to asphalt?
It'll just go from grass to asphalt.
Okay. And in the winter time, are we expected to plow that?
I believe the township was clearing the multi-use path.
Correct. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll be cleared, and so it'll be a continuation of the work that's already been done for Planks Lane. So it'll be swept up towards the school.
Okay. I do have one more question. I do appreciate your patience. During the construction piece, so it's May to September, and there will be times when homeowners do not have access to their driveway. I understand that, you're going to provide notice to that, but on the off chance, like what is the duration of, is it like just one day versus a night, or is it a couple of days where there'll be no access to the driveway? What do you anticipate that looking like?
It totally depends on what they're doing. Usually when they're digging, like the sanitary sewer is going to go in first. It's the deepest, and to make all the connections to the houses. So while they're in front of your house, in front of the driveway, they probably could get in and out of there in a day. So you might be one day for that.
Okay.
When they do the curbs, they got to pour the curbs for the road and then let them set up and cure for 24 hours or so before they can drive over them. So there may be a day or two when they do the curb work, and then once they start to do the road grainers and the paving, it probably won't be too much impacted by that. Maybe one day when they actually do the paving at the end.
Okay. And sorry, just to go back to the asphalt pathway. So you're saying that it's 2.5 meters in from the road. Does that mean that I'm losing front footage?
No, it's all on the township right away.
Okay.
So yes,
It's pretty close to the property line. It's
Okay.
very close to property, but it's all on township property.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions that I have. Oh, sorry. One moment.
so are they gonna replace the culvert, like the sewers to the house?
The sanitary sewer,
It's
yes,
ceramic sewers to the house.
Yeah.
So are they gonna replace that as well?
they'll replace it up to property line.
So no.
So not on private property. No, the region of Durham does not replace private services.
Mm. but it's their responsibility to maintain that, right?
Not on private property.
And I might be wrong, so maybe somebody else will have some more information. I believe that it may have just recently changed at the region. Kind of how much is taken care of as for like with a property line. From the property
The only
line.
reason I'm asking the question is because I've already had a collapse when I first bought the house 30 years ago. And I had to replace it myself. So that's why I'm asking now. It's clay from where I replaced it, fixed it myself to the road. So if that collapses in the meantime, who's responsible?
If it's on the right of way, the region would repair that.
Well, it's not on the right of way, it's down my laneway. This is why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, so anything on private property, they will not, unless it's changed recently, but historically they haven't touched. Like they'll go a meter or so onto private property.
Yeah. But I pay the money for that service.
Yeah, but they don't. They historically don't. What's on your property, you own it. That's it. So same with water services. The water service fails on your property. That's up to you. The region looks after.
That was replaced on the township coin. All right, thanks.
We can take an action as staff to investigate and get the answer directly from the region so that there's clarity for all.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Can we get a copy of this, the PowerPoint, like this slide that's showing right now?
Yes, I
Yeah,
believe
it'll be part of the presentation on the township website.
Great,
Correct.
thank you.
Yeah, so it'll be posted in a few different places, and the recording will be available, so you'll be able to dive right in as well.
Great, thank you. Those are all our questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We also have a question coming from EW.
Hi there. EW is Elizabeth Williams, my wife. I'm Jonathan Gladstone. We're in number 9 on the north side of the street. We have a couple of questions. One is right now Planks Lane rises a little bit just immediately west of Marietta and then drops fairly steeply towards the end towards Main Street. In the wintertime, that's occasionally a problem. Is this going to change the roadway grade at all or not?
Not a huge amount. We're not going to come up in the air, like up to a hump from Marietta. It's more comes off Marietta and more gradual curve down and then
good.
straight down to Main.
Good.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's at the top end of the street. It's gonna probably drop 6 inches or so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's something. The other question, is there any consideration being given to making some part or all of Planks Lane one way? The travelable roadway will be narrower even now than it was before, and that was already a problem.
Yeah, I believe that was talked about in the past. I'm not sure what the township's position on that is. It's changed or not, but it was not favorable to do that.
Is there any reason for that? Do you know?
Like if I could jump in, that's something that I heard while door knocking during the campaign, and my understanding is that it was a decision no, but it's definitely something that I can take on board now, being your new representative, and look into that a little bit further. But to directly answer your question, no to the.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Liz. Did you have anything?
No, good. Thank you.
And we've got Regional Councillor Bruce Garrett with a question.
Thanks, Ed. And just a quick comment on the one-way piece. Certainly, Zed, if you want to take it on to see if there's any interest, this was reviewed even before the first phase of this project was taken on. And so, before my term in Ward 3, and my understanding was it was one of those 50-50s. that 50% of the neighborhood liked the idea and 50% didn't, and everybody had really good reasons for and against it. So that's why that one had previously hadn't moved forward. Ross, a question, just thinking back on the past 3 phases, when you talked about the water lines not being replaced this time because they were recently done, that was one of the challenges in the past 3 phases where those temporary lines were put in and then had to be tested and made sure will that be avoided this time?
Yep, there'll be none of that.
That's good news for the residents.
So no disruptions to water service. It's going to use what's in the ground. We're not touching anything, turning anything off. No temporary water, nothing. So
great. That's going to be
that shaves a month or so off the schedule.
Absolutely, with the testing.
Delays for testing. So
yeah, and there's always the concerns with the water, so it wasn't dead ending and flowing into a drain and everything. So that's great news. That's a definite advantage for this 4th and final phase. My other part was sort of a question and a comment. You're talking about encouraging people to have that inspection done, just to be mindful of the inevitable vibrations that come. I recall meeting both during a past phase and then during the recent the campaign, a gentleman on Marietta to the south, and actually quite a few houses to the south. He's almost down across from the senior center. Had called a number of times saying about the amount of vibration. He was a little surprised by it. I don't know for sure if he or his neighbors that far south were given the opportunity to have that inspection done. So I won't word it as a question. I'll just put it as a comment that I would encourage you, as that inspection is done, to consider how far north and south on Marietta and on Main Street, quite frankly, that offer would be extended.
Yeah, I'm just trying to recall right now what we had in the contract. I think we've gone 2 or 3 houses north and south, but maybe that particular one isn't as far. And if I remember correctly, I do remember speaking to that woman, and she was pretty irate about the noise and the construction and the vibration and everything going on. And just something to keep in mind, that the geology up there, the soil is very sandy, and sand is great because it drains well, but it also will transmit vibration much easier than if you had a clay soil, for instance. So that's part of the problem.
Okay.
If you want to call it a problem, but yeah.
And
but
my
we can
last...
definitely.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say we can definitely check that house and make sure we have it on the list.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. And my last one is just a little bit further on the answer to the woman who spoke about the asphalt multi-use path in front of her home, and why asphalt. That's a very common question that we faced. It's I'll just be clear that it's not a budget issue. Like, the difference between the cost of asphalt versus concrete is not something that would be a deciding point. It's very much about the issues, Ross, that you mentioned about the smoothness of it. It is wider than a regular sidewalk, and it's really around our focus on active transportation. So Ross had mentioned it's good for strollers, young children, particularly on bicycles. It's also better for those that are using devices for transportation, like a walker or a wheelchair and all of those. So that's why when we put in a multi-use path, that's why we use asphalt. And then the other point was, whenever we install a multi-use path now, it automatically does go on that list for clearing. So both plowing and salting to get it cleared as soon as possible after a storm. Just wanted to elaborate a little further on your answer, Ross. That's all. Just okay. with three phases behind us on this one. That's all I had. Thanks, Zed. Thanks, Ross.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions from the group here this evening? I'm not seeing any, but questions may come up before the actual construction begins, so certainly don't hesitate to reach out. As we get closer to the actual reconstruction day, more numbers will be provided, like that of the emergency names and the contact information for the inspector on site. So look for those to come. But I do appreciate your time here this evening. This will be disruptive, so I appreciate your patience over these next few months, and I'm thankful for the team that's at least going in and doing a few different jobs during this project, so that it'll be a much nicer area for you to be in moving forward. But thank you so much, and thank you so much, Ross, for getting us through and getting this information out. Okay, so with that, oh, no, just saying goodbye. All right, we'll see you guys.
Yeah, just saying thanks and good night.
We'll see you. Good night.
Thank you. Good evening.